Let's hear it for the internet. I'm trying to help you close strong.
Thank you, man.
Enthusiasm.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe we should have brought the beers out. There's like this case of cold beer in the green room that's just sitting there going, ha, 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 ha. You have to interview Evan before you get to me.
We're close.
We get a little,
make it go fast.
We get a little punchy at the end of these things, but we're going to have some fun here. So last year, when we sat here, probably in these very chairs, from what I recall, I was needling you endlessly at the opening about what your revenue model was.
Yeah, it was really annoying.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And then every time I saw you, even socially, I just kept needling you. It was awful of me. But you
Not that we hang out socially.
My goodness. Now you have an answer, right? So you've done, well, you have the beginnings of an answer.
Yeah.
You've got the promoted tweets, you've got the promoted followers, you've got the promoted trends.
Promoted trends, promoted tweets, promoted accounts. Promoted
accounts.
Suite of products.
Right,
yes.
A promoted suite. Yes. So how is that model doing? How's it working?
It's going great so far.
I'm surprised you would say that. I would have thought you said, oh man, it's been a total disaster,
No,
I need a new revenue model.
Well, it's early yet.
Yeah.
So we have to see, but we're enthusiastic.
Can you give us a sense of the scale of it? The reported numbers have been, $80,000 to $100,000 for a promoted trend a day. So if you just do the math at 100,000, you go, that's $36.5 million of revenue right there.
I haven't done the math. We have
you have people who
a
do
finance
math?
department that does math.
Right.
But I can tell you that our biggest challenge right now is that there's way too much demand for the supply. So that's why we've been ramping up our sales team to get people in the door. So we've kept it small, and we've purposely kept it small so we can test very thoroughly and learn from what's happening and get feedback from the advertisers. So it's about 40 advertisers so far. We expect to be in the hundreds by the end of the year. But the response has been really interesting in most cases. And the promoted trends have been working really well. And that was a couple examples. What we see is, on average, they promote, what the promoted trends do, and in all these cases what we've done is we've taken an organic part of Twitter and given companies an opportunity to basically optimize what they're already doing on Twitter and increase the engagement and conversation around their topics. And what we find with promoted trends is it increases conversation about whatever's promoted by 3 to 6 times, and including beyond when it's running. So this has been used a lot for movies, for television shows, for media properties when they want to launch stuff. AMC just launched The Walking Dead with a promoted trend, and we're very happy with it.
When I asked my followers on Twitter what questions they might ask you, one of them was from the guy who bought that, Ian at Deep Focus, who said, hey, that really helped, thanks.
Right.
But then he said there was another one that didn't work so well, but then he said maybe
Can't
that
bat
movie,
1,000.
Yeah, you can't bat 1,000, but 50% ain't bad. And
yeah.
also, it's also, is the movie any good? Because you have a signal in terms of whether or not something continues to get promoted, right?
Yeah. So that's a big part of why it took us a while to roll this out, is because we thought, well, we can't just put stuff in front of people. If they don't care about it, then it doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do advertising any good. So we built some technology. We have what we call resonance score for every tweet. And that's a measure, basically, of how much people are engaging in it beyond or compared to what we would expect statistically. And so if something has low resonance, it falls off, and it doesn't remain there as an ad. And so that benefits users and advertisers.
So actually there was a promoted tweet I noticed on the hashtag on the search for Web2 Summit, for W2S.
Oh,
yeah. And I didn't recognize the advertiser. So that's a different system in terms of how did that happen? And where's my commission? I'm kidding on that.
We'll talk about that next year. I don't know how that happened, to tell you the truth. I suspect that people knew there's going to be a lot of, Twitter's always been great for events, and this is a big event that Twitter users are searching on and watching the conversation, and it makes sense. Someone wants to be there.
Right.
Someone wants to be at the top of that conversation, wants to reach this audience and the millions of people who are watching along at home.
Well, but it's been now, I mean, really 6 months or so, even a little longer, since you've been experimenting with this. So do you think you've learned enough to be able to say, we've figured enough out to say, I have a strong revenue model?
The math looks good, and I'll tell you, the advertisers, most of the advertisers are coming back, and they want to buy more. And if we're optimistic about what it means for our business. We know we're also at the very beginning of it. So if, I'm not going to make any guarantees, but we feel good about where it is. It's, there's a million ways to make money with Twitter. We'll probably try a few more. And we're not married to anything we're doing now, but we're pleasantly surprised. Actually, it's done better than we even expected. So it's going to go well.
That's certainly good. Let me ask you another question that relates to revenue, which is another one of your sources of revenue, and it was pretty much a central story last year, is the Twitter Firehose and access to the Twitter Firehose. Like a lot of different platform services, anyone can access this and sort of sip from it, but not the whole thing. Right. The whole thing, you reserve the right to enter into a business relationship with parties to do that. And some of those were announced last year here.
Right.
Since then, what strategic announcements have you made? And in particular, can we talk about, and I don't even know how to pronounce GNIP.
GNIP.
GNIP, I thought it might be. You announced this today, right? Or yesterday?
Yes.
Which is a sort of a half hose, and they're going to be a reseller of that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. We had all these funny names for the different hose versions internally. We had hose bird and hose dog and garden hose, and half hose may as well be in there as well. So a year ago here we announced Microsoft and Google relationships where we licensed them the Firehose of public tweets to incorporate in their search engines. We later added Yahoo, so we have all those guys. But what's happened since is we've gotten just way more demand than we can service for that data. And the point of those deals was never primarily about revenue. It was, we believe that it was good to get more distribution of the tweets, and because the whole point of them is to help people know what's going on in the world, and these search engines are where people are going, in many cases, to find out what's going on. So we thought it was a win-win for users and for the search engines and for us to get this distribution. And so that has gone well, and we've done a few deals since, but we didn't really set up for this to be our big revenue model, so we didn't build a whole team around doing these licensing deals, and we've gotten lots of demand. Specifically, we've gotten demand from people and companies who want to look at this data to learn about trends and analytics for marketers and other companies about what people are saying about X, Y, or Z. And there's a million ways to slice and dice this data, and a lot of companies that are in that business, and we're not really in that business. So what we did is we formed this partnership with GNIP, and where we give them the Firehose, and they do the reselling of it. And that's that half the Firehose is enough to, more than enough to do statistically relevant analysis on almost any topic.
As I understand it, what is being resold is the ability to sort of derive pattern from the data, not to show the data.
That's right.
Okay. One of the themes throughout the conference, and you get to be the guy at the end who ties it all up in a bow, is can't we all just get along? And Danny Sullivan, who's here, and an old pal and colleague, wrote a post today where he basically showed disappointment in my interviewing skills, in that I couldn't get Eric to say he would work with Mark, and we couldn't get Mark to say he would work with Eric in terms of exchanging data and working together. So let me just ask you, We ever going to see that fire hose consumed by Facebook?
I think you'd have to ask Mark that, but you missed your opportunity.
Always willing to
We
put a
tried.
petard right in front of myself that you can hoist me on.
You also didn't ask Mark why they blocked us from doing the integration with.
Well,
with
this
Facebook.
is along the lines of the can't
Like,
we
it was
all
like-
get along?
Yeah.
So are you frustrated by that? Or do you?
You know, sure. I mean, we'd like our users to be able to tap into Facebook to make their Twitter experience better. Twitter does integrate with Facebook to a certain degree.
Yeah,
A lot
all
of
my
tweets go that
all
way.
my tweets go into Facebook, but I can't tweet out.
Right. But I don't know, you know, not everything. I understand their position. They see their social graph and it is their core asset, and they want to make sure it's fair, that they want to make sure there's a win-win relationship with anybody who accesses it.
Right.
And so, you know, we're talking to them often and seeing if there is a way to work together. But so far, neither side has, you know, found out a way to do that other than what we do already.
Right.
So we'll see.
We'll see. Recently, you led a charge inside Twitter that has ended up as what was announced as the new Twitter.
New Twitter.
A redesign of Twitter is, I would say, it's hard actually to make it cleaner, but it has more on it, but it feels cleaner. It has the pane on the right side, where you see the promoted tweets and a feature that I find quite evocative, and I don't know if the audience does as well, which is the suggested users, the users to follow. I don't remember the exact nomenclature, but
Who to follow?
Yeah, who to follow,
Which is improper grammar, I think.
Is it? Well, I imagine, you know, tweet wasn't a verb before you showed up, so. Improper grammar, my mother's going to kill me, she's an English teacher, but, so you led that charge, and you recently announced that you moved from CEO to sort of focus on product, and this was your sort of big focus. Mm-hmm. How is that, what have you learned from that? Do you consider that a success?
Yeah. So a couple questions wrapped up there. Yeah, so new Twitter, we're in a transition as a company right now and over the last few months in which, if I look at the history of Twitter, I feel like we spent very little time improving the product, either adding functionality or improving the user experience. And that's because we had to spend all our time scaling and ramping up our team and infrastructure. And we got to a point earlier this year where that's part of the reason also why we didn't launch any monetization efforts before this year. And we got to a point where we actually had the time and resources to do improvements that weren't just superficial improvements. And so we had a team that was going to redesign Twitter and to just do lots of stuff that we knew needed to be done. And we knew this from user tests and our own observations. And I wanted to push the envelope a little farther. I thought that we needed to find a way to expand the functionality of Twitter and make it more efficient, and also drive discovery of content within Twitter without complicating it. And I worked with our this awesome team of engineers and designers to design this new product. And that was really fun, and it's really the beginning of where we see Twitter going. And at the same time, we have all these other teams that are innovating on different aspects of the product, from mobile to the monetization to relevance and search. And so back to my roles, this is my fourth role at Twitter, and I've changed it over the years based on what I thought would be most helpful for the company. And since I've always been a product guy, the fact that we now have all these resources to actually do product development for the first time, I want to spend all my time working with these designers and engineers to do that. I think that's how it can be most valuable. And so give the CEO reins over to Dick, who's been our CEO for a year, and it's going great.
Now, do you have any, do you have any, I don't know, nostalgia for the CEO role? I mean, was it something that was a difficult decision for you? Was it something that you had to think hard about? Or was
Yeah, I had to think hard. I had to think hard about taking the CEO role in the first place 2 years ago. And that was, for a long time, I thought I didn't want to be CEO of a venture-funded company. And then I thought it was the right decision, and I enjoy doing it, but it's kind of a sucky job. I don't know if you
Hey, I'm
realize this.
CEO of a venture-backed company, and I love it.
Good for you. Some people do.
I know Dick's out there somewhere kind of going, oh.
I think his hair is falling out. Having
just...
His fault.
So is mine, actually.
So is mine.
Yeah. So that transition, the product focus, I do actually want to ask you something very specifically. How do you pick the people that you offer up as people to potentially follow? Because, at least in my case, I found it to be extremely useful.
Oh, the module.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't know. We have scientists and math people who do that, but
well, it actually doesn't feel like science and math. It feels sort of human.
Yeah, there was a lot of iteration on the algorithm. The obvious thing is to do a collaborative filtering sort of thing and say, you follow a bunch of people and I follow a bunch of people and they overlap in this way, and where are the ways they don't overlap, and let's recommend those vice versa. And that's a start, but we look at a whole bunch of signals. We have actually a reputation score for every user based on...
Are you ever going to make that public?
We've struggled with that. I think it'd be really cool to make it public. The problem is then it's kind of like making PageRank public, and it'll get games.
PageRank started as a public paper.
Fair enough.
But now they're, thousands of signals beyond PageRank.
Right. So we might, but it needs to evolve quite a bit more first. Right. But that's one of many signals we look at, as well as who different people follow. But we found at first that when we did that, we recommended sort of unexciting or uninteresting, like people you knew about and probably weren't following for a reason, because they're the most popular people. Of course, you're going to run into them. So we had to introduce more surprise and randomness. And at this point, it's way beyond what I understand, but it works pretty well. It's getting better. And of course, we measure the results and try to improve it. Right,
of course. I want to ask you, and I think this probably will get into a little bit this particular point, because Twitter has shifted a lot in the last year, in particular, because you're starting new monetization streams, which are now being delivered not just on the domain, but out into the ecosystem of third-party developers. Because there were so many people that excited about the openness and the basic sort of decentralized approach that Twitter initially took to its own service. You had a very strong developer community. Mm-hmm. You've had to negotiate a rather treacherous path to sort of re-centralizing some of the services of Twitter, the user interface of Twitter, the experience of Twitter. And that's pissed some people off. And some people who have invested their careers or their resources or both in building stuff that then you build into the platform.
Right.
I remember asking Mark this question 3 years ago. But if you're a developer and you're putting your heart and soul into something, how do you know if you're doing something that isn't going to become a feature of Twitter and you're going to be kind of left holding the bag?
Right. Well, it's a complicated answer. And we've learned...
Well, we have all of 11 minutes and 13 seconds. So
all right. We've learned a lot about having an ecosystem and working with third-party developers, and we've certainly screwed up a lot of that. And partially that's because we didn't set out to be a platform company. And we added an API onto Twitter, as a lot of companies do, early on, because we thought, well, that'll be neat. We don't know what will happen, but it'll be nice to plug Twitter into other services. But that's different than really developing a platform. And platform, you need to really think through in a way that's going to provide lots of opportunities for many companies to win, and it's going to be, there's often tension between platform providers and developers, but I think well-designed platforms are those that offer lots of opportunities for winning businesses to be built on them. And we aspire to be a platform company, but I don't think we've really done that yet. So there are some opportunities and some developers done well, but the way that I look at what's happened is we kind of launched Twitter as, call it a Model T type of product. And it was very basic. And it was popular, and it got people excited, and this swarm of developers came in and started making it better in the aftermarket, which was fantastic.
Right.
And it served users, and it served us, and it helped us sell more Model Ts. And that meant all of our efforts went to increasing production. But a thing that happened over about 20 years of making the same Model T is they started to get beat by GM because their cars had to evolve.
Right.
And when we looked, early on we had a theory that, well, that's great, that if you want a radio for your car, you just get it elsewhere. But that we realized wasn't really serving users as much as we should, and we were going to get beat if we just stayed there. And I showed this video at our developer conference about 6 months ago when I was explaining why we bought Tweety and made an official Twitter for iPhone app. It was because people simply weren't finding these awesome Twitter clients that were in the App Store because they weren't called Twitter.
Right.
And you couldn't sign up for Twitter on them. And we realized, well, it's crazy. We can't be a modern internet company without our own mobile apps.
Right. And so it's clear, I think when that move was made, it was pretty much anyone who was developing a mobile app for Twitter stopped and said, okay, we're going to move on to something else. But I think it keeps, I think folks want to know what's safe, right? Today you announced an analytics product, and there are lots of developers who are doing analytics products. And I imagine that you're doing so much and that there's lots more that could be done, and you could consume the GNIP fire hose and do an analytics product that uses pattern recognition from that and so on. But what is safe? Are photos safe?
I don't know.
That's a fair answer.
Are photos
safe?
safe?
It's much shorter than saying I don't know for a minute and never saying I don't know, which I've heard on this stage.
Our answer about photos is the same it was a few months ago, which was a lot of people share photos on Twitter. With new Twitter, we made the consumption experience better. And for certain providers, we show the photo right on the page if you're using the web interface. And we think there's more improvements to be made because our goal is to help people share and discover what's happening right now in the world, and photos are very useful for that. And so we think we need to create a better photo experience, but we haven't determined exactly what that is.
Right, got it. Guys, please come up to the microphones so you can ask questions, and we'll get to you and make sure we have time for you, so come on up. Now, let me pivot for a minute here and ask you about another theme of the entire conference, which is finance. We had Yuri Milner here, and it's very clear that you are his desired fourth company. Facebook, Groupon, Zynga, Twitter. I'm sure in the secondary market he's already active in your shares. Are you now, or will you soon, be considering, or do you need a very large round from a well-heeled Russian financier?
Well, that's great company to be considered in. Do you really think you're going to?
No, I really don't.
Right.
No, but
we have a lot of money in the bank.
You have a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah.
But you always want to eat dinner when the hors d'oeuvres are being passed. And there's Yuri with a platter.
I've heard that.
Okay. Do we have questions from the audience? Is that Ben? I can't see.
Ben.
Hey.
Ben Parr of Mashable.
Hi, Ben.
You addressed the ecosystem question very well, but I'm just going to read this tweet from Mr. Chris Dixon to SG. Twitter analytics. You'll see zero smart money investing in Twitter. Doesn't affect me or my investments. I just think it's a bad move. and he's focusing on that and the developer ecosystem, which he says you're nuking it. Do you have a response to Mr. Dixon?
You have to now answer to Twitter.
So we launched, I think the point he's referring to is we launched to a very few users an analytics dashboardy type thing to help them figure out which tweets are getting the most response. As I said before, I think we need to keep improving Twitter. We need to keep evolving Twitter. And we need to also provide more opportunities for developers to add value. Everybody wants to be a platform. I don't think we've built a great platform yet. We desire to build a great platform. But the answer to that, and one that serves users and developers, is not just not doing things. We can't just okay, everybody else would take care of stuff, because it just doesn't work. We actually tried that for a couple years and it didn't really work. And since we've moved into mobile client space, for example, our mobile usage has exploded. And so we're going to keep making our products better, and we're also going to look for ways that third-party developers can add a lot more value. But that's it. We're not going to make our product worse because other people said, you haven't done that yet, so I own that.
Thank you.
There's always this push-pull, and we asked Mark earlier, what areas were safe, and he kind of indicated that gaming was safe, that he'd reached detente with that. Are there any areas in the ecosystem that you seem to clearly think, we're not probably going to roll that into
there are a bunch, but I probably don't want to go on the record of saying anything. I doubt we build games, but
one never knows.
Well, I don't even know if Twitter games work.
Well, Angry Birds, shouldn't that be a Twitter game? At least Chris Dixon seemed like one.
Can you tell us anything on the near roadmap on your product roadmap for Twitter? So analytics today, anything coming in the next quarter?
Yes. Well, I'm not going to tell very specific things. We launched a new iPhone app yesterday, which has push, which is awesome. So you can stay abreast of the tweets that matter most to you. And I can tell you in general what we're working on, which is relevance is a big theme for us, because our goal is to really give people the most valuable information for them wherever they are. And I think looking back over the last couple of days, one theme that I noticed is we're all, especially with the new companies that are launching, a lot of them are focused on what's the most important information. I think that's a signal we're all being we have this treasure of too much information, and that's very empowering and helps us all, but it's clearly becoming more and more of a problem. There's just too much. And our goal with Twitter, we've never measured things like time on site, because our goal is really to optimize for return on attention and help people pay attention to the stuff that really matters to them. And so that's going to be a big theme for us for the future, is how you get more out of this. There's 100 million tweets a day. Which ones matter to you?
So if you were to start to develop a relevance algorithm that could be applied to tweets in the flow of what I follow, then you might see the more relevant ones resurfaced higher up in the...
And we've done some
not just a
experiments.
timeline, but a timeline plus a signal of relevance, such that I see more relevant.
Yeah. We don't want you to limit the number of sources of information that you want to follow and then feel like you're missing the most important stuff.
Right.
And we've done some experiments with this in search. For example, we have top tweets.
Yeah, you have top tweets in search.
And so we're playing with that. Figuring out relevance in real time is a non-trivial problem that no one's really done before. So we're working on that. But it's inevitable that we're going to focus on that a lot more.
Right on. Over here.
Roger Biharilal. Question, it's a bit more, I guess, personal or philosophical. Twitter, probably more so than others, certainly there are other tools, has made everybody into sort of a cub journalist. Anything and everything that happened on stage was quoted and could have been in the press within minutes. what do you feel about sort of the impact that Twitter has had on society, where just everything is instantly media-worthy?
Like a guy who gets mad at an airport in Britain.
And then all of a sudden, boom.
Ends up
exactly.
in jail.
Right. Well, I've been working on lowering the barrier to publishing for most of my career. So, and I've come to believe, basically, and we say this in Twitter all the time, that the open exchange of information has a positive impact on the world. It's not 100% positive, but it's net very positive. And we see examples of this every day. And we saw the examples of this years ago working on Blogger when Iranian women were writing me and saying they were expressing themselves freely for the first time in their lives. And that was very inspiring and motivating. And we see this constantly now. And I think with Twitter, we've lowered the barrier to publishing about as far as it can go. Literally as easy as sending a text message, which is on billions of phones, you can have something on the web that's viewable by anyone in the world. And that's why we do this, and that's getting more voices and ways to find the truth, I think means that more truth will be available for more people, and then that's really our goal. So we're just scratching the surface on what that means. I think the reason that I've been inspired to work on these type of products for the last decade is because I think this is what the internet empowers, and society has not fully realized what this means if everybody has a voice, and we're going to be working on that for a long time.
Right on. Over here.
Hi, at Brendan Dodds. You just touched on the Twitter joke trial, the Paul Chambers case, where he tweeted a joke threat to an airport and was arrested a week later. That seems to be a growing cultural shift, especially in the UK. So, the response to his failed appeal was the second trending topic worldwide, with users retweeting his threat against an airport, becoming the second most common tweet out there. Last week, someone was arrested for a joke that was perceived as an offensive threat against a Muslim woman. Meanwhile, we've had major national newspapers exposing individual Twitter members as turning up to work hungover to a government job, that kind of thing. There seems to be a real cultural backlash against what's perceived as an inclusive community. And I wondered if you had a view, obviously not on the legal proceedings of those individual cases, but on what appears to be a cultural shift. But I think Twitter users are beginning to feel persecuted.
Like I said, I think society is not yet prepared for the implications of everybody having a voice, and that includes people who have access to text messaging and alcohol. But so there's going to be some painful lessons while we learn that. But I think it's good for us.
Hi, this is Karthik with DC Cap. Are you also working on Twitter for other languages? And what are those languages, and when can we expect it?
Yes, well, we have Twitter. Of course, people tweet in every language on Earth as far as we know. But Twitter.com is available in French, Italian, German, Spanish, and Japanese, and English. And we'll be rolling out more languages by the end of the year, I believe.
There was a report today about Weibio, which is a Sina service in China, and the analyst report said that Sina's quarterly results were okay. But the stock shot up because all they talked about in the analyst meeting was Weibio, which is a Twitter competitor in China.
Fantastic. By the way, we're launching a really cool thing right now, which is integration of Google Translate. So if you see a tweet that's not in your language and click on the tweet, in the details pane under the original version, there's a translated version. It's very cool.
Awesome.
Hi, JD Lasker here. Evan, yesterday I ran an interview with Claire Williams about Hope 140. I wonder if you could tell us about, there's so many nonprofits don't even know what that is. I wonder if you could tell us about Twitter's plans for doing social good and how Hope 140 ties into that?
Sure. So the question was about Hope 140 is a website that we run where we aggregate our corporate social innovation efforts, and we had people dedicated to doing social good efforts for Twitter when we were about 40 people, and that continues. And we work with all kinds of organizations. One of the first was Room to Read, who we partnered with to make fledgling wine, which you should buy for your holiday parties. And all the profits go to Room to Read to help build libraries and schools for children. And we do a bunch of efforts like that. We work with Project Red and others. And basically, we just think it's important. I mean, our whole point of when new employees join Twitter, we tell them our goal is to change the world, build a business, and have fun. And 2 of the 3 aren't good enough. And so we think Twitter in general, done right, will change the world. But being involved in these kind of efforts and having some immediate and tangible impact on people is very gratifying.
Last question here.
We talked a little bit throughout the conference about the secondary market for shares in companies. And so when did you first discover that relative strangers owned a piece of Twitter? And what was the company's reaction? We've seen some transaction fees levied and kind of companies are dealing with that. And I guess in answering the question, what would you recommend for smaller companies that might discover themselves on the secondary market and how they should respond?
Right. So the secondary market is this interesting thing going on. I'm not an expert on it at all, but it's odd to me as being an entrepreneur in this industry for a long time that people are selling shares when we haven't done anything yet. So it's an interesting phenomenon that I don't know when we first experienced that, but it obviously has pros and cons. I think the biggest recommendation I'd have for smaller companies is really think through the implications of having people be able to sell, and probably put some restrictions on it. We've been fortunate that not very many Twitter employees have sold much of their stock who are still there. I think that hopefully that means they're confident in the future. But I would say it's not something that we were fully prepared for.
No, it's a new world. Well, I think we're 6 minutes over time, so thank you very much for coming and helping us close Web 2. Join me in thanking him. Thanks for me. That was great.
My pleasure.